Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Pilgrims on the Digital Way. My name is Matt Poynton, and with me today, as always, is...
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Michelle. Hi, Matt. Nice to
Hel-
see you.
Nice to see you again. Been a bit of a gap between our last videos.
Yes.
Life got in the way, and it's probably worth saying here as well that after this one, this is episode 9, I think.
Yeah.
There will be another episode, and then we're going to leave it for a bit. Firstly, because it kind of tends a nice number to round off for the first series, but
Yeah.
also it's holiday time here. So I'm going to be heading off to different places, and nobody's about in August time, so we'll do that. And
True.
then if there's an appetite for this, if people want more videos, then we can start
Yes.
making them again in the autumn. So yeah, so that's that. The last video, let me have a look because there was a comment on it.
Oh,
And the
great.
comment is from Lindsay Shute, who commented before. And I love Lindsay's comments. They're really nice and well thought out and in depth.
Yes. Lovely.
And it says, "Hey guys, thank you for another fun discussion. Firstly, I want to say to Matt, beautiful singing, and thanks for introducing me to this song. It's a very big topic to unwrap, isn't it? It's basically life, which is mega complicated. My first thoughts were that to meet with Jesus, you don't have to be on pilgrimage in the proper sense of the word. So when they return and it's over, they should still be meeting Jesus, albeit in a different way. As you guys said, the reason was to escape their lives completely, and maybe they expect a miracle that once being on the path, their lives would be transformed on their return without them actually putting any work or slash thought in, if you get me. So, of course, what we were talking about here, Mary Michelle, is the downside and people who
Downside. That's
use
right, Matt.
pilgrimage as escapism. She carries on. I think that anyone embarking on a proper pilgrimage, as in break from their real lives, that in planning the journey, start by setting out clearly what they are hoping to get from it, then journaling daily whilst away, and
Mhm.
include within the plan a cooling off period at the end to reflect on their journey and see what needs to change in their lives. But I think it's an important area to discuss and think about before you set off. Hope you
Oh,
understand the ramblings. I don't know if I did. I think I'm just repeating what you guys said, but hey ho. Thanks, guys, for the videos. I love them. God bless Lindsay.
oh, wow. That's such a great comment, Matt. She really, really seems to have some great insights. Thank you, Lindsay.
But by the way, I am referring to her as a she. I mean, Lindsay could be a man, actually.
This is
I
true.
don't know.
Same.
I don't know
Let's say
whether it
same.
makes a difference how you spell it. Anyway, I mean, is there anything that comment makes you think of? Because I've got a little thought, but Mary Michelle, you first.
Well, actually, and I agree with Lindsay on every point that they made. Um, and I actually did look into this a little bit more, Matt, because I remembered that I've actually had read the term Camino blues, that people
Right.
experience what's being referred to as the Camino blues, which is a post Camino phenomenon, which is that there's a kind of a real risk almost for people to not be happy once they're off the Camino, away from the community, away from that single, very singular goal that you said of achieving getting to the cathedral. So I actually came across an article that is fantastic, Matt, and we'll put the link in the description. It's written by a person named Leslie Gilmore, and I found it on a website called CaminoAdventures.com. It's a blog post, and it's called Transitioning from Camino Life to Real Life. Now, which begs the question, is Camino life not real life? Well, it is, but in a very different context. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just pull up, quickly read a
Mm,
couple of things that really struck me, which of
okay.
course ties into what Lindsay has said and what we discussed last week. So, and here, I'm actually reading the ending first. It says, it has been said that the Camino is the link between who you were and who you will become. I think that's really very good. And then so this person, now I'm going to go from the beginning and just pick out the things that I thought were great. So it says, make no bones about it, the Camino will change you. From conversations with many pilgrims post-Camino, I can say for myself and many others that reintroducing yourself into your old life is one of the hardest parts of the Camino. So you change, your daily habits change, your conversations, your body, the food you eat, the way you see people, the way you see the world, all these things change. So coming back to your old life can actually be quite a shock and a bit depressing for many. Mm-hmm. And they go on to say, and I think this is where we come to the crux of it. Some people run to do a second Camino as soon as they can. Mm-hmm. Not saying this is a bad. Oh, some people experience slight depression and realize how much they dislike their lives back home. And you talked about this about your friend Christoph a couple of videos ago, Matt, or maybe it was the last video, number 8. Not saying this is a bad thing, just saying this is what the Camino is for. It helps us wake up to what we really want in life. It helps us to realize where our life is and where we want it to go. It gives us time to think about all the things we haven't done and all the things we want to do. For some pilgrims, it opens doors and propels an avalanche of change in their lives. For others, it shows them that they do not like what they have created in their personal lives. And for some, that can be very hard. Nothing changed except you. So I'm not going to read any more of that, but I thought this content really tied into what we talked about, what Lindsay said, and what we're ultimately doing with this series, which is really exploring what is the purpose, in fact, of a pilgrimage. Does it change us? How does it change us? And what do we do afterwards?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I mean that's yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, and I'm already thinking of things that I'm going to say. Just going back to Lindsay's comment,
yeah.
Like talked about like journaling while you're on it. One thing I will say, this is a very practical comment, is I'm a journaler. I write as a hobby, and I write not just spiritual stuff, but also normal travel logs and that. One of the problems I have with Camino, I go there thinking I'm going to have loads of time and energy to do that, and I struggle to actually even write down the basics. And that sounds so daft because you're thinking, well, what are you doing all day? All you're doing is walking. But it does take the energy, and you have these conversations, and before you realize it, you're shattered. It's nighttime. You got to go to bed to wake up early, and you haven't journaled. So yes, the intention to journal is there, but even an established journaler like me finds it a bit difficult at times. It's certainly not going into great depth like I would like to, and like I sometimes do on a standard holiday when you're actually probably doing more things, as it were. But I think we underestimate just how much energy it takes out of you. You're walking, like both mental and physical. So okay, but that's that. The period of adjustment is important. It's good. The problem is the old money and the time, because a lot of people struggle to get the time anyway, and then to have those extra few days in a hotel adjusting somewhere in northern Spain is not always possible for everyone. But I think actually in an ideal world, yes, you should have that in. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Matt. I really do. And I'm a journaler too, and I use it, I use it to not just to record, not really to record my life, but more to explore my feelings and things, my thoughts. And this writer, I didn't read this part, but they went on to say that they think this is really important. While you're on the Camino, I want to urge you to write these things down. Things that you want to change in your life. Then this is obviously the take of this particular author. Write them down, put a date to them. When you get home, start working towards those things that you wrote down. On the Camino, we will have a goal. Typically, that goal is to get to Santiago. And if once you lose that goal, and you said this
Yeah.
last week,
Yeah.
Matt, that you can end up feeling a bit lost and a bit hopeless. At least this is, according to this author.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If you start working on your new goals, it will keep the progress and your mind focused on where you want to go with your life post Camino. So,
Okay.
and personally, can I add a personal note
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
I get it that people are very limited with time. They've taken time off work. They're not being paid. You have a certain number of days to walk a certain number of kilometers to reach the goal. However, for me, I would love to have it a bit, this is just very personal, but I would want it to be somewhat more open-ended, maybe slightly less goal-oriented, not quite built like that. And that I would walk half as far on a day if it meant that I could then have the time to process, to journal, to rest, to be quiet, to reflect. And I've said this all the way through this series because that's what makes me tick. And I'm just a little bit, I mean, obviously it's personal for everyone, but I don't want people to miss that opportunity. I know everyone loves the Camino and they walk and walk and walk and walk. And I don't know. I like the idea of
I think
more of a blend.
one of the problems with the walking half the distance, say, or cutting it short to give you more headspace to journal on that. And I agree with what you're saying, but if you're walking with someone and you're in a group or with somebody who you really get on with, you also kind of tie yourself to their pattern as well, because if they need to press on another 5 kilometers, then you'll kind of do it because you want to be with them.
Yeah.
So it's not a solitary thing. That's,
For
I
me,
mean, when
it
it
would be
is
more
solitary, that's quite different. But
Yeah.
when you're, as one of the main things is talking to other people, you kind of don't want to lose them. Although, of course, sometimes, as in life, some people are destined to be with us for a long time. Other people we just walk together with for a short period, but we get a lot from that person. So, I think that's
I just have one more thought to add, Matt, which is that I'm a little bit, I guess the right word is afraid of the distance and the grueling aspect of it. So I guess, but so I'm not taking myself as an example. I haven't actually done this, so it's all theoretical. If I were to only walk half the distance and only test myself to half the physical effort, am I actually cutting off some of the experience because that I would then want to be processing and writing about? Because I don't know, I'm not quoting it exactly, but I did read somewhere that we're actually part of the pilgrimage is actually to suffer. We're meant to
I mean,
suffer
I would like
physically.
to do another episode on pain and pilgrimage and suffering because I think it's a really interesting thing.
Well, it's part of the
What I will
process.
say before we go on to today's question, because I don't want to get too sidetracked, is that a friend of mine, he's a laughter yoga practitioner, and one of the laughter yoga things that he does is he says, tell me something about yourself. So he says that he's very good at tidying up chocolate bars. That's what he does. He sees a chocolate bar and there's one piece sticking out, and so he has to, tidy the chocolate bar up. And then, well, there's a half a chocolate bar. That's not really right. So he has to finish the whole chocolate bar. And he says, and we're all bad. Some people, it might be, tidying up the room when you need to be relaxing, or it might be making sure that, or all this is done, or it might be eating that bag of crisps so it's not lying on the settee, all those kind of things. And what he says is, when you do something like that, give yourself a medal, or write a certificate for yourself, because the point with laughter yoga, it's slightly silly. I mean, this is the thing. He said, because then once you've got that certificate, you don't need to earn it again. You've done it. You've achieved that. So next time when you feel the urge to tidy up the chocolate bar, go, well, why do I? I've already got that certificate. I need to get a different certificate now. And I do think that's the thing with the pain. Like, yes, you can push yourself, and that can be okay. But do you have to do it every day? Once you've done
I
that,
see where you're going.
once you've
That's
done
really
that, okay, you've
interesting,
proved you
Matt.
can walk 30 kilometers. You've proved you walk 40 kilometers or whatever your goal is. Now,
Wow.
do 10, you know, because you've proved that. What are you trying to prove again? So, maybe that's a way to think of it. Anyway, what's the question for today?
Okay, question for today. Can pilgrimage change your life after you completed it? Matt.
Okay. And I guess maybe that's you thinking about that article, because that says it does, doesn't it? That's
Yes,
very
it
firm.
does.
Okay, I would say it can. I would say for me, it has, and for numerous other people, it has.
Matt, you did say when you said you did the Camino in 4 stages, you said it changed my life.
Yes, it did. That said, I won't go as far as the writer of your article and say it will, because I think there are some people it doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And
Everybody's different.
so if I go on the ones that it doesn't, and I mean, maybe I'm being a little cruel here, or maybe I'm not being as aware as I should be, but I'm thinking of 2 people. One's a very good friend of mine called Steve, who I convinced to do the Camino. He walked the Camino. He had a great time. He loved it.
Yeah, I think
But
we
I don't
talked
think it
about
changed him. But Steve is a very, very accomplished walker. I mean, literally, we climbed a mountain together in Wales, and he was almost jogging up the thing, and I was this wheezing wreck. That he's about 20 years older than me. I mean, the guy is just ridiculously fit. He regularly treks in Nepal and stuff, and he's not religious. I wouldn't even call him that spiritual. He's a really cool guy. He's a really nice guy, but that's not his thing. And fitness is his thing. And I think he saw it as a fitness thing, where having a few chats with people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a great time. He got something from it, but I don't think it changed his life.
Okay.
Similarly, I met a lovely Chinese girl on the Camino, and I do forget her name. She was a very nice girl. But again, she was doing like 40 odd kilometers a day. She was super fit, and she was doing it as a fitness challenge almost. So, and so I guess you could say it changed both of them, and it made them fitter than they were before.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
your question to me was more about a mental change, and yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, very much so. Up your perspective on life and on yourself and
Yeah.
on our role in our communities. And I mean, that's just an endless
Yeah.
question.
Going back to myself, I believe it has changed me profoundly, and I believe it has changed me
Wow.
as much, if not more, than any other travel experience that I've had, which I think is quite important because, as I've mentioned before, travel's a passion for me. I mean, I've been to about 80 countries, and I've been to places like North Korea and Eritrea, some pretty far off the beaten track places.
Yeah.
And I found, that walk across northern Spain, and also the one I'm doing at the moment through Italy, the Way of St. Francis, to be very challenging and life-changing. And in fact, I'm also going to say the 3-day walking pilgrimage that I did through Wales, even that I found really challenged some of my perceptions, and it was where I had my first kind of spiritual experience. So
Which you
I
described in
found
one of
them
our
change.
videos.
Yeah, they did. The question is how, and I think it can change you in terms of, you're more aware of fitness. I mean, I am a lot physically fitter. I had a knee problem because I injured my knee when I went to North Korea, and it was very weak, and I kept having problems with it. And after walking Camino, it's much stronger. So, on a very base, like physical fitness level, I am much fitter than I was. I mean, I might not look it, but I am. And I've got a lot more physical fitness than I did have, 5-6 years ago. But on a mental level, it changed me, and I learned several lessons. And the first one and I may have mentioned this incident before. And so I was climbing up from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Orisson, which anybody who's done it, that's like the first day, and it's like that.
It's one of the worst days from what I hear.
I would say it's by far the worst day, in terms of like physical challenge. Now, I the way I did it is I started very late in the afternoon from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and I did the first 5 kilometers to a place called Junto, which is the first albergue. So I did about 5 kilometers one day. So I knocked 3 miles off. Okay, and then I thought, well, that's good. I've knocked 3 miles off. I slept well, woke up early, and I'm gonna do it. And literally within half a mile, I was stopping every 10 minutes, wheezing, and being bypassed by grandmothers and babies.
Because it's so steep, you mean?
Yeah, the steepness, I was really physically unfit. I'm still physically unfit, but really physically unfit then. And anyway, then this lady, she was an Australian lady called Jackie, came along and she stopped and she said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, not really," and she said, "Well, it helps to talk." And I said, "Look, I'm struggling to breathe, let alone talk." And she said, "Well, I'll talk, and you just walk."
Uh-huh.
And my immediate reaction was no, because I will slow you down, right?
Okay.
And
So
then
you
what
were
I realized then is that I had a very, very deep-seated fear of dependency. I was scared that I would be dependent on someone else, but also they could be dependent on me. And what I realized, and it literally was like a light bulb moment, and was that came because when I was a young man, within the space of 6 months, I had two things happen to me. One, my dad died in a car crash. And then the girl that I was madly in love with at the time, she went off and married somebody else. And
that hurts.
Well, it does. And the thing is, I think what it means is that you, like, on a subconscious level, I'd kind of learned that doesn't matter how much you love someone or even how much they love you, like your dad, or whatever their intentions are, they will abandon you. Because either through choice, as with the girl, or through, lack of choice, but death, like with my dad. And so I thought, don't be dependent on anyone because they'll leave. And don't make anyone dependent on you because you could die one day as well. So,
Wow,
like, the way I brought my son up is to be very independent. And I think that subconsciously that's why. And what I realized in that moment, and my big lesson from Camino is sometimes it's okay to be a bit dependent. And sometimes it's okay to have someone a bit dependent on you.
Okay. Well, that sounds like it was deeply important and fundamental for you, man.
Well, I think it was, and the other one I learned is that as I walked the Camino, and as you know, I walked it over a period of 4 years. I walked by chance or design, mostly with women. Now, some were young, some were old, some I fancied, some I didn't. But they, and what I realized is my life was very male. I mean, I have a son. I'm divorced. The work that I did was mostly with men. They kind of, when I was hanging out, I would go to the pub with men. My hobbies were very male, things like cricket, things like, the football, things like railways. When I traveled, my normal traveling companions were men. And so I had a very male life. And yet when I was younger, I had a lot more female friends. And it reminded me that the importance of female company as well as male company. And so what I did when I came back from Camino, I really made a conscious effort to rebalance my life, rebalance my friendship circles and all of that. And I did write an article about a relationship that I had with one lady online. She was somebody who can't walk the Camino, but she was a very talented writer. And that essay is on my Medium page. But it wasn't just her. Like, literally, I've got numerous friends. There was one whose birthday party I went to last night, and and that I've made since then, because I said, right, I need to rebalance, but also at work. So within my work, I've been trying to like promote, like do work with women's groups, do work around
Yeah.
causes that are important to women, like gaslighting, like honor violence, this kind of stuff that I wouldn't have done without Camino. And it gave me, I mean, like one of the ladies, I'm not going to say who, but there was a lady I walked with, and she'd found out that she could never have children, and she'd always wanted children. She was in a very happy marriage, but she couldn't have children. And she was walking to Santiago to come to terms with that. And
Mm.
although she'd kind of come to terms with that largely by the time I met her, at the end of the day, that's such a big thing. And as a guy,
Mhm.
that's not something we generally have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it changed me. I don't know. I mean, there are other ways, and I know other people that it's changed too. But I mean, well, two of them is, John and Laura. I walked with them across the Meseta. They met each other on Camino, and they're still together. So,
Yeah. That's
and
lovely. That's lovely.
yeah,
Okay, so Matt, okay, so I'm getting a sense that maybe there are, I don't want to say there are two types of pilgrims, but of course there aren't, but there's everyone is an individual. However, I think there are those who are walking with to resolve something in their life, like the
Mhm,
woman that you just described, and even
mhm.
yourself on some level. Although you hadn't planned that as a goal to work through, these things came through for you
Yeah, yeah.
over the pilgrimage. But there are people who, they've lost someone, they're very ill, they're someone they love is ill, they're
Mm,
alone in life. There are people, and I think those people, I mean, I'm just, guessing here, but they are likely to find some answers, some insights, some understanding.
mhm,
But and I think there are people who are literally doing it for the achievement, and that's okay too. They may
mhm,
not be, I mean, this doesn't happen to everyone. They're sick, they've lost someone, there's something
mhm,
important that they're walking for, but they still very much want to do it, and they're very committed. And so maybe what changes, as I said earlier, I'm not really very goal oriented. So I don't rely on goals to give me a sense of achievement. But I imagine there are people who do. And I
mm,
think it's a phenomenal achievement if you get through it. Like I was just
mhm.
reading on one of the groups about this older couple. I think they're American. I don't know if they're in their 70s, or they're for sure in their 60s. They walked nonstop without a day off for 69 days. They did the whole thing. I think they went to Finisterre and back again to Santiago. Somehow I think they did part of the Camino Portugues. Anyway, 69 days. And
Mhm.
the achievement, the sense of achievement of that. I mean, surely that's a life altering and a
Mhm. Well,
pinnacle in your
I
lifetime.
think it is about who you are. I mean, you said you're not goal orientated. I mean, I have a friend who's ADHD. I suspect I'm under a diagnosed ADHD, and so ADHD people, they often have a lot of half finished projects. So actually, to be goal orientated for an ADHD person is probably a good thing, because you actually get to do something and have that achievement rather than
Right?
a half written
Yes, I
story
agree.
that sat in a
Lovely.
notebook. But yeah, everyone's different. And again, yeah. So the lady who had found out she can have children, there was a specific purpose. I think with John and Laura, I think certainly Laura was at the crossroads in her life, and
Yeah.
I don't say she was looking for love, but she was at a place where she was more open for it, perhaps. And whereas some people aren't, and Steve, that wasn't. He's very happily married. He's got a pretty
He
good,
didn't.
fulfilled life. But
Yeah.
he went along to have a good time, and and he did, and he achieved his fitness thing. But I don't think it's changed him particularly as a person. No.
Right. Yeah. Well, then he went along with you because it seemed like
But he didn't
a
go with
great.
me. I convinced him to go, and he did it a
Oh,
year
I'm
later.
sorry. I thought he said.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, trust me, I couldn't walk at that speed. It's like Steve was like a 40K a day guy. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. No. Okay,
Yeah.
Matt. Well, wow. Well, that was certainly very interesting, Matt. Thank you so much for those insights. Very
And
valuable. Thank
and
you.
thank you. And of course, if anybody's got any, because actually this is a topic, and I do want to finish off now because we're probably gone over time, but this is a
Yes.
topic that I think could be explored a lot more. And
Well, this
actually,
is
I
actually
wanted to
the
do a
topic
video
for
or
me.
an essay or something on this
Yeah.
about living life like after Camino. Like, how can it change you? How can you take the pilgrimage home with you? And to
Yes.
get
And you
different
said
people's
this to me.
experiences.
Yeah. You
So,
said this to
if
me
people have
before,
got
Matt.
any comments, leave them on the video, because it may well be a topic we come back to in the next series, if not this. I mean, we do have, I don't know if we've got a question for the final episode, but we may leave that
I think we're
questionless.
going to do, we're just going to sum up.
Yeah. Okay. We'll leave that questionless, but if anybody has any questions for us that we can look at on that final episode, they
Leave us your
can.
comments.
But
Wonderful.
again, if people want it, we will go and do a second series in the autumn when there's no
we
holidays.
will. And so please let us know.
Okay. Well, God bless
On
my
that note-
Michelle, and stay on the path.
Thanks a lot, Matt. See you next time.